Thanks. And thanks to Deputy Harkin for bringing forward this bill, which we are very, very happy to support. Look, when the for-profit banking system drove this economy over a cliff, along with their developer friends, government moved heaven and earth in order to prop them up. Emergency legislation was flowing like, confetti. Late night sittings, huge urgency, and €60 billion in order to keep them going. And how have they thanked us? They thank us with Ulster Bank. Well, actually, they weren't beneficiaries of the bailout, although you got bailed out elsewhere. Just up and leave. And then the other banks, the pillar banks, shutting down branches left, right and centre, highest interest rates in Europe, and a general disregard, I would say, for the public, for any sort of social objectives, for any objective other than the bottom line as far as they're concerned. Right? And yet, we did everything in order to sustain them, as previously we'd done everything essentially to facilitate their racing greed with the dire consequences that had. And you contrast then that with the lack of urgency in terms of supporting the credit unions and their members who have completely different objectives, absolutely benign objectives. To serve their members, that they're not about profit, that they are about trying to achieve social goals and community goals. They are the model of what banking should actually look like, right? Not from profit banking. And of course, in my world, we would scale up the model of the credit union to the full-scale, publicly run, democratically run banking system, and remove the for-profit banking system, which in my opinion has failed us. But while I doubt the Minister would necessarily endorse that socialist aspiration for a fundamentally different type of banking model, the very least the government could do is show the sort of urgency that they have shown for the for-profit banking system in terms of supporting the credit union movement. It seems to me that we have had this debate over and over for years. I mean, I've been having this discussion with the credit unions where year after year they have their briefings and they ask us to put forward these asks that Deputy Harkin has put forward in the bill year after year to government, and it's always tea and sympathy, lip service, but not a lot in terms of actually advancing the requests of the credit union movement to understand that they are fundamentally different and have to be treated differently from the for-profit banking system, and that the failure to do so threatens their very viability. And that they should be allowed to increase the amounts of services that they make available to their members, and that we do, as this bill is proposing, that we would have a credit union policy committee that would essentially look after the interests of the credit union movement and ensure that central bank regulations and so on are not such that they will threaten the viability of credit unions, and that they will fully understand, if you like, the ethos and the need to protect the ethos of the credit union movement. But as other deputies have suggested, while I know the League of Credit Unions welcome your review, Minister, they're glad that review is happening, the question of actually moving from the review to advancing the requests that the credit union movement are making. And that needs to happen. It needs to happen as a matter of urgency. They've been asking for a long time, and I think you should show the same urgency as was shown to the for-profit banking sector. And I heard you say, in terms of one of the asks in this bill, and I bow to Deputy Harkin if I've got this wrong, but you said that it would be inappropriate for ministers to set the reserve ratios for credit unions. As I understand, the bill is not actually saying that the minister should set them, but rather that the central bank would have to check in with the minister in terms of the setting of those ratios, right? In other words, that there would be an opportunity for the credit union movement via the political system to question the imposition of certain regulations, in this case the regulations around ratios, on the credit union sector, where what's happening is the regulatory excess of the central bank imposing the sort of regulations, well in fact sometimes even more excessive regulations than they impose on the other banking sector, is actually threatening and inappropriate for the credit union movement. So that, I think, is what they're saying. So I don't think your response is adequate. It's not about saying the politicians should set the minimum reserve requirements, but it is about saying that the central bank should check in with the political system, and there should be an opportunity via the political system for the credit union movement to have its voice heard in these matters, because their voice has not been adequately heard, and I think that that is what they are asking for. And you know, you can't overstate the importance of them being a fundamentally different animal. You know, like, why do we need a particular type of regulation for the for-profit banking sector? Because they're out to make profits, and therefore you can't trust them. To put it bluntly, you can't trust them. You need the state to keep a close eye on them, because their drive for profit leads them to do things which can and have driven us over a cliff, can have really damaging impacts on society, on communities and economies. The difference with the credit union is that they don't have those objectives, right? So now that doesn't mean they don't need any regulation at all, but fundamentally they are about actually trying to contribute to the well-being of society. Right? And so it's a fundamentally different thing they're trying to do. So it is inappropriate to impose the same kind of regulatory regime, and particularly where it's excessive and threatens their very viability, as that you impose on the for-profit banking system, and of course in terms of the services that they are allowed to provide, actually give them less entitlements than the for-profit banking sector to provide services for their members. So I would strongly appeal to the Minister to support this bill, to progress this bill. If there are particular technical or, you know, specific issues that you want to amend it at the next stage, fine. I don't think anybody objects to having a serious debate about that, because the credit union movement is a responsible movement. It's a socially and economically responsible movement, and I'm sure they're very happy to engage with the government, but let's move the thing on and actually ensure we protect and develop the sector and give it the support it deserves.
Thank you, Deputy.